Haven't we all read a book, seen a movie, watched a TV show where we thought that character is fascinating? They're not the protagonist. You don't have the biggest insight into their mind or their history, but they leave an impact on you. Their motivations and their decisions are fascinating to watch. I have felt that before. And that is what led me to pick up the book Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. Yeah, it left me disappointed. It made me wish that I didn't know anything about Lady Macbeth. In fact, it made me regret knowing about the play. That's how it made me feel. This Lady Macbeth novel frames itself as a reimagining of the tale from her point of view. You know, explaining why she did what she did. Explaining her reasoning. Did she want vengeance? Had King Duncan and his family wronged her family? Which would lead to her eventually going mad because a cycle of violence has just continued itself. It's never ending. Or did she just want to be queen because she wanted some new furniture? She wanted a new wing on the castle. Maybe she just wanted to be queen. Maybe she had really progressive tax plans and had a infrastructure plan she really wanted to implement. Either way, each option is fascinating. But we didn't get that. We didn't get the Scottish noblewoman who married Macbeth, who are partners in crime, and traditionally are portrayed as around about the same age to show that they're equals, that she has knowledge of the court system just as much as he does. What we got instead of this book, was a Lady Macbeth who is a 17-year-old teenager from France. She's the bastard daughter of the Duke of Avignon, and she has magical eyes that make men go wild. Now, if this was advertised as a young adult book, I could accept her being 17. This book is not young adult, it's advertised for adults. So making the main character a teenager doesn't make sense and is just coming off ageist and taking away her agency, because magic is not a substitute for power. And this book had pure romantasy vibes throughout it. Pure romantasy vibes. But it's not just giving romantasy, it's also giving kind of like stars. You know, the stars period dramas, the White Princess, the Spanish Princess. You know, those period dramas that popped up around the time of the Tudors, but not like the interesting ones. The ones that were very, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful, everyone loves her, I'm fighting over her. That's what it's giving. In fact, actually, it's giving more Rain than it is even the Stars drama. And if you remember Rain, it was the story about Mary Queen of Scots in France. And the fashion was really bad and it was wrong and completely historically inaccurate. This is what this is giving, but marketed to adults. And the worst thing about making her a teenager, making her a 17-year-old teenager from France, is that she has no agency. She does nothing, she pursues nothing, and has no real wants. It also shows a very poor understanding of what a woman would be facing in that world. That to describe the sexism and the system she's up against, we first meet her on her way to Macbeth's castle. and she's with her handmaiden. And her handmaiden comes along, and then her handmaiden disappears. And she's like, what's happened to my handmaiden? No one answers her. But then she realises there's no women in the castle. Not one woman at all, besides her. Soon she finds out that they just killed her handmaiden because she was a woman. And no women in the castle. That's not what women faced. Castles always had women working in them. Women have always worked. The idea that they just randomly kill women in the castle because sexism is such a poor understanding about what real women faced. It's cheap, it's tacky, and it's lazy. But it does go into my next point, where the fish out of water story, which could have been interesting, is purely used to portray Scotland as the most savage and disgusting place that has ever existed. You don't see the beauty of Scotland, not the lovely hills and the mountains. It's cold, it's dark, it's depressing, nothing like France. The place is full of brutes. It's horrendously xenophobic to Scottish people. They are just savages. I mean, that's the only way I can describe the way they're portrayed. As pure savages that have no sense and no reason. An example of having no sense and no reason is the fact that they just kill all women that enter the castle because we have these traditions which say that men should only be in the castle because women belong somewhere else, because that's how things work. So I think what I hate the most is that there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no reason for all the women to be killed. It's just gratuitous. I will say, she does use her brain a bit, where she doesn't want to sleep with Macbeth because she's a child. She's 17, and his description is just big man, and she's scared of him because of course she would be. That's fair enough. So she's, well, hold on to your hats, guys. She strangely, almost instantly, falls in love with King Duncan's son and heir. But his son is different, you see. He's not like the rest of the Scottish, because his mother is English. So he's just that bit more classy and less brutish than the rest of the Scots. Which is completely okay and doesn't have any negative connotations at all. And this love that she feels, it motivates her. It motivates her to be self-sacrificing. She is so self-sacrificing and so strong that when Duncan dies, his son is put in prison. One flees and one is in prison. And to save him, she offers herself to be tortured in a very brutal scene. And I guess it's the whole part of self-sacrifice for someone you love, and there's strength to that. But offering herself up, not using her brain to kind of get him out, that doesn't show. It shows that she's a child, I guess. But it doesn't show that she's smart. But don't worry about the prince, because the prince, you understand, this prince is different. He turns into a golden dragon. I'm not joking. Malcolm turns into a dragon and flies off. It's crazy. I don't know what that has to do with Macbeth, but it is sure a tonal shift. Now you may ask yourself as well, why would she help Duncan's son if she had just convinced Macbeth to kill Duncan? Well, those magical eyes that she uses, Macbeth forces her to kill Duncan with her magical eyes. she is forced to hypnotize the attendants and get them to stab King Duncan brutally. She cries whilst this happens because she doesn't want to do it. She doesn't want to be queen. She just wants to be nice, and she really likes Duncan's son, so she doesn't want to upset him. She has no motivation. She's there crying as she arranges Duncan's murder. She's forced to do it by Macbeth. That's just depressing. Just because she has magic, it doesn't make her stronger than the woman who told her husband to do it, and when he came back with the knives in his hand, she was like, get away, you're leaving evidence all over the place, plant that evidence somewhere else. Having magic is not a substitute for power and decision making and using your brain. But I think this is a symptom of another bigger problem where people can't be morally grey. Lady Macbeth is the protagonist, so she's the good guy, and she's 17 because romantasy genres tend to have 17-year-olds or 18-year-olds as the lead, young adults. But the whole idea that we cannot take a morally grey character or a villainess as a protagonist is just laughable. This is interesting. You've made her forced by Macbeth to kill Duncan. You've taken away her desires and her wants. But it is a symptom of people aren't allowed to be bad anymore. Women can't be villains. Girls have to be all sweet and perfect and forced to do things and have no agency of their own. But they can fall in love with a dashing hero and a dashing prince and eventually become ruler of somewhere themselves. Well, co-ruler, because she has a husband, of course. So she is allowed power, but only power attained through more moral means, such as marrying an heir to the throne that is there by more legitimate means. But who knows what his family did to get the throne in the first place. Fleshing out the characters so her wants to overthrow this whole system and put herself on top would be far more interesting. Maybe Macduff is a bit of a shill. He's the 11th century equivalent of someone in the EA Creator Network trying to sell you the 100th DLC of Sims 4, which is already broken and will crash your game. Maybe that's who Macduff is to her. So you're thinking, at this point you must be thinking, okay, so she has magic. She's the witch. Where are the 3 witches on the heath? Well, the 3 witches on the heath, they're now not free women. And I mean free as in like free to go places. They are now imprisoned by Macbeth in his cave basement. And they hide in the corner of the cave and rattle out when he goes downstairs. Which is so depressing. Like, these magical beings that had the power of prophecy were messing stuff up, were sowing the seeds of chaos because, hey, witches, have a good time, are now imprisoned by Macbeth in the basement. They don't even have freedom of movement. They are forced to give Macbeth prophecies. Bloody hell. This is so bad. But again, we have to make this character extra evil by making him worse to women. Oh my god, this is so terrible. The witches are chained at in the basement. The poor women in the basement. Throughout the novel, they have references to Macbeth's two earlier wives. So this French teenage girl is not his first wife, she's his third wife. The suggestion I got from the book, but maybe I read it wrong, was that they didn't produce heirs, so he got rid of them. But no one knows where these women are. They don't know what happened to them, which even in 11th century Scotland would cause a scandal, because he would have been married to women from powerful families. So the fact is, these two women go missing and no one cares. That's not how society worked, even in the 11th century. These were the wives of Macbeth. They weren't the wives of some fisherman, and they weren't the mistresses. Them going missing would be a massive deal. It would also lead to Macbeth being, most likely, probably some sort of outcast. But whatever. So you keep hearing references to these two wives. And then at the end, when the final part happens and they go into the basement, it turns out that two of the witches were Macbeth's wives, because the name of one of the witches is the name of the real historical Lady Macbeth. So not only did this man imprison these powerful three witches that were like goddesses, they are also his ex-wives. It's giving Jane Eyre but bad. But all is right in the end, because I think this is why they made two of the witches his ex-wives. The three witches and Lady Macbeth all plot together and work together and lead to Macbeth's death. And I guess it's supposed to be one of those kick-ass moments, because they killed him, which is kind of very bubblegum, very girl power. Not, this is a woman who has fought for herself, advocated for what she wants. This is, the girls have got the power and they've wreaked vengeance, but they were also put through dehumanizing circumstances, and their power and their agency was stripped away, which I don't think is a very good feminist retelling. And obviously after Macbeth dies, the Dragon King becomes King of Scotland, and they marry, and she becomes Queen of Scotland. So, happy ending? I don't find it a happy ending. So my final thoughts on it are, I don't think this was supposed to be an adaptation of Macbeth or a reimagining of Macbeth. I think it's supposed to be an original story. I don't know if the publishers persuaded her not to go this route, or she wasn't up to world building a whole fantasy world. So had the story fit a Macbeth shaped hole, which meant that none of the story worked? I'm unsure. But this should have been an original Romantasy young adult book, and it probably would have worked in that context, and I wouldn't have wasted my time reading it, because it just doesn't work at all in this context. I don't know if she was rushed to bring it out, like she had a deadline and they seemed to like this idea, but she really wanted to write something else. That could be what actually happened. But by doing this, no one won. Everyone lost. This was not a good book at all. Technically, I will concede it was well written. I think the cover was good. I think the cover carried a lot of the work in marketing this. The cover that I saw in the UK was a really cool cover, and maybe that is why I took it out from the library. My library had 3 copies, so they were definitely expecting this to be a big hit. I personally would have never purchased it, but I can see why people did. Maybe expecting kind of a Cersei tale. It's very popular on Goodreads and Storygraph. The reviews are mixed. On both it has about a 3.5. There are a lot of 5-star reviews talking about how this is girl power, how this Lady Macbeth has more power than ever before, even though she is forced into doing lots of things she doesn't want to do. But on the other hand, you do have a lot of 1-star reviews. People who are not happy with the lack of agency of the main character. The treatment of the witches is another one. So it's very mixed reviews. I think it is very Romantasy crowd. So that's it for now. My soul has been broken by this book and all the 5-star reviews I've been forced to read. Thank you for watching. You can call me Gigi. This is goodbye. If you like this and you want to see more of my reviews and rants, please like, subscribe and comment. And even if you've hated it, please comment, because it's good for engagement. Bye-bye. For a large part of this book, she was moaning that she has to change herself because all the women in the castle were killed.